Test zvuku, test zvuku. je. Jsem dobrý, no. Tak tam vidět to, co vidíme my. Jo. A to necháme taky. Yes, we can start.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to here and joining us online. This is the final day and the final event of Earth Survival Cave, an expedition of history of power. And today we have articles written by Nela Pietrová and Ondřej Trhoň. We're going to place them both out there. No one then you can sell it and then we'll
That's important too. I can start my. I was mostly responsible for bringing up the idea that we could make a game together, and B what? And putting it to Unity with more or less success. Apart from doing some indie games myself and writing about indie games and queer games and stuff like that, I also do a PhD at AVU with the curator Clip Hauer, so nepotism check. I'm kidding. And yeah, I've been mostly interested in games for the last 3 years, I guess. And so it felt natural to join forces, also because we're partners. We're also partners in art.
Yeah, I'm Nela, and I'm not a gamer at all.
Well,
maybe I should start with saying that.
Well, playing The Sims is a real gamer experience.
Yeah, I used to play The Sims.
So
that's true. But this is for me a very new way of, like a new art form for me. And I'm currently studying MA at the Academy of Fine Arts in Prague in the Intermedia studio, and I guess I'm interested in the kind of transformational processes that happen between the digital and the physical, between sculpture and a 3D object, and what's the kind of relationship and how we can understand kind of complicated like processes of becoming through these kind of entities, both physical and digital, and how they interact. So yeah, this is
Can somebody just check the sound from YouTube that we're going through, just to be super sure? Should we start from the game? Probably. I don't know. Should we, or will we end with the game?
Well, we're already playing the game, so maybe it's the best to just maybe rather than a game, I would call it a visual essay. So you're kind of swimming through this, like we said, primordial soup, and you're encountering these entities that each kind of open up a fragment of the essay. So you're kind of collecting the text as you go, and you're interacting with the entities by pressing space, and they kind of move and they respond to you a little bit.
And they also gradually just get spawned randomly and just die out also randomly. And yeah, well, it's funny you should mention it's not a game, because it works very consciously with the conception of a game, which I strongly believe we should not we should not limit ourselves to one conception of a game. I mean, this was a debate that was alive in video game journalism and thinking mostly at the start of 2010s, where there was a big backlash, or like at the end of 2000s, and then in 2010s there was a big backlash to a certain kind of games which weren't super dynamic or interactive in a traditional sense. So we kind of, I think about our game as a part of this lineage, but also I'm really like what we've done with it for the ETC gallery, because this is actually a project that in its first version was exhibited at the Divadlo X Deset Theatre X10 at the Harbor of Sorrow, I think it was.
No, it was Y Events Normal Bodies.
Normal Bodies,
Sorrow
yes.
was after.
Actually, well, originally commissioned for this exhibition or site-specific exhibition, but it didn't include the essay, and it just basically lets you, I don't know, to feel and be in the space, which actually I think was a worse way of utilizing the interactive element than it is now, where you actually interact with the essay and its parts gradually, and you're also forced to interact with the bodies there, which shrink and flow away and do weird stuff. So yeah, it taught me a lot about rotation algorithms in Unity. So yeah, that's the game, and you are super fine just by playing it, and I think you don't need quote unquote anything else to just like have an impression and some sort of experience.
Yeah, I was saying that I didn't consider it a game because like to me, as a non-gamer, for me, the fact that there is no real kind of like what is it called, like goal in the game, rather than actually just collecting all of the text, but it's kind of kind of happens automatically
there's
almost.
No score.
So there's no score, and so it's more like, I guess, borrowing parts of like the interactivity and everything from game, but for me it's more like a visual style rather than the actual, I don't know, environment considered as a game.
Yeah,
but it's fine. We can speculate about this.
Yeah, we can do formal deconstruction later. But what is, I guess, most interesting is the origin story of all the creatures. I think we call them creatures.
Yeah, I call them creatures.
In the game.
Yeah.
So should I switch to your artist talk folder?
Sure. Yeah.
Or
I can kind of show the process of how these little entities that are swimming in the soup are, well, how they happened.
Because they are obviously a part of Nela's much more extensive body of work. Yeah, they're lichens, and so this is a photo from the natural reservation of Dobice, and it's just a sandstone completely covered by lichens, and we were there with our studio. Yeah, it is lichen. What do you think? I don't know. I never know how to pronounce it.
It's lichen.
It's atrocious.
It's lichen.
Lichen.
I did actually search how to say it, so I know.
No, I wasn't trying to explain lichen.
I think you were a bit trying to explain lichen.
I will fix some bugs later.
But the reason why they're interesting to me is, first of all, with their kind of toxic color, they're kind of luring me to kind of observe them. So that's how they kind of caught my attention, and I was fascinated by how vibrant the color is and how it's like growing so organically on the sandstone that's actually dead. So there's this like very, I don't know, not very nice environment, and something like this vibrant can actually grow on it. And then I started reading about them and found out that they're actually more like multi-species organisms. They constitute of algae and fungi and sometimes bacteria as well. So it's more like a community of cells and organisms that kind of work together in order to get all the nutrients that they need, and together they create this thing that we call lichen.
Something post-anthropocentric ontologies.
And I was taking pictures of them using my iPhone, and I was using the portrait regime, and
They are so cute.
they started getting these kind of like other than just like floral form. They started creating like these little creatures, or at least I could see like little creatures in them, I guess. Like here, like this is quite a funny one. Or this one. So yeah, I was interested in that, and I was interested in what happens when you take something from the physical world and you take a picture of it, and then it becomes data. It becomes it goes into the kind of digital realm, and then when you manipulate it, you're kind of mixing it up, and I guess that's kind of, for me, a kind of metaphorical like allegory of like becoming this kind of digital transformation.
And also a strong queer context, no?
Yeah,
because why lichens? Lichens.
Yeah, like I was saying, lichens, because it's an organism that's made out of several different ones. So they're kind of different, I guess, even genetic origins, and together they kind of communally, in their multiplicity, become this one thing that we perceive as one thing, but they're actually separate things that are kind of all have their own processes of becoming.
Right.
Which is, for me, inherently queer, because thinking about a body as a kind of shell made out of thousands of different bacteria and cells, and they're all uniquely kind of functioning on their own and coming together as a community, is, for me, a very kind of queer idea of perceiving the human body, rather than like this one kind of homogeneous organism. It's something that's made out of millions of separate ones. So then there are these images that just kind of illustrate how I started kind of taking out.
So these are already digitally manipulated?
These are digitally manipulated, so I kind of started creating these little creatures.
I got this for my birthday. The print.
And then started to be more and more kind of digital. This is a very huge image. Oh, actually, it works. And then from that, I kind of printed it out and created this installation with these actual, like, physical creatures that were kind of growing on top of the kind of virtual, I guess, soup space.
Based on the actual shapes and...
Yeah, based on the actual shapes that were the lichens that I found in nature.
This is a...
That's why the text is there, because it's a very complicated
so
kind of process.
So we already have what, like, nature to picture through Photoshop to soup, to soap, and to soap on the prints of the digital. And then the game.
And then they go back into the digital, and they kind of, they take vectors out of them, and I create like 3D objects with them. And then
And those are the objects in the game, right?
Those are the objects in the game, yeah.
So those are so just as a summary, those are a result of very extensive manipulation with a very strong, I'd say, effective dimension for you as an artist.
Yeah.
And we made them go alive, which was, yeah, I mean, that was maybe also, I don't know as it was for you, but for me what was really intriguing was the idea of making them somewhat go alive in the digital realm of the game, since I love your objects from soap, but they're static. So this was a way to insert movement and to also make them react to you in a more, I don't know, tangible, simulated way.
Yeah, and perhaps there's still space to kind of make it even more like interactive.
Yes,
in a way.
if I knew how to code better, they could probably be more squishy or something.
Yeah. yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else to be said about the game.
We can look at the history, you approaching this kind of non-human becoming.
I don't know how to.
Yeah. Sorry. No, we can just.
Uh-huh. I'm sorry, I don't know how to use Windows, so for me it's.
Because
Yeah.
if I should roleplay a person who's interested in theory, I would obviously say that your work, our work, is very much in some way in conversation with the post-anthropocentric philosophical ways of approaching the world. Like, I don't know, Timothy Morton comes to mind because he like without going too much into the dissolution of the modernist subject of of a clear-cut human identity or whatever, this kind of enmeshment and ever-present connection with the non-human entities, and as you said, like as you said, the uh, genetic aspect of the lichens is something that is very present in our brains as well, with a lot of heritage and lineage that can be traced to various life forms. So yeah, I think it's actually very contemporary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to boast, but
yeah, and also if someone's like interested in the actual theory that's behind this, there is an essay by David Andrew Griffiths, which is called The Queer Theory of Lichens, where he's also taking from Timothy Morton and kind of talking about what I was saying, the multiplicities and community of different organisms coming together to kind of create this one thing. Yeah, that's something that I put into my notes to mention. Also, Paul Preciado. He's, I think, Testo Junkie is the book, where he
Yes.
talks about encountering testosterone, so this hormone that enters his body, and how it's, I guess, he considers it a sort of entity on its own, and it's kind of like a. What the toxic becoming?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, that's true.
we forgot the way that.
So yeah, when I was talking at the beginning about the kind of toxic colors of the lichens and why it was interesting to me, because I'm kind of through this the whole project, I was kind of trying to understand my own sort of personal toxic becomings that are happening in my body through all the pills that I'm taking, whether it's hormones or antidepressants, and kind of trying to figure out how to deal with it, because I'm both fascinated by what it's doing in my body, and then not only to my body, but then I piss it out, and then it interacts with
Fish.
like fish
Yeah.
or whatever. So it's kind of like this ongoing process of queering.
It's the fish in Thames with cocaine and antidepressants.
Yeah.
That's what the Guardian headline said.
Yeah, it's very hard for me to concentrate when you keep on saying funny things in the middle of my sentences.
I'm sorry.
So as I was saying, it's kind of queering through me. It's then like a never-ending process, because those kind of substances leak outside of my body, and then they encounter other entities, and then they queer together, and there's always like this trace of one through the next and the next and the next, and it's like a never-ending kind of becoming together. So it's the same with the hormones and the antidepressants. Was kind of trying to understand that, and also how it's like, I mean, inevitably I'm part of it, and I can't really escape it. So there's nothing else to do than to kind of accept that it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening in my body, and it's kind of uncontrollable, and it's what I call in the essay the toxic becoming. Together with those kind of alien molecules of hormones and other pills and other substances. But it could be, it could be extended to the air that we breathe, that it's polluted, and how we're kind of taking in all those alien things inside our bodies. And inherently there are reactions that are happening. So
And there's
a lot
also-
about the chain reactions.
And there's also the monstrosity of it, not to take the title of the exhibition too literally, but I mean, you in the text you wrote around this subject. There's also the "Can the Monster Speak" by Paul Preciado, which deals with the monstrosity that is present in these alien substances as well, right? I mean, there is a strand of anti-psychiatric thinking that sees like psychiatric pills as pills that subdue the ill-fitting personhoods and personas and psychic states. So in a way, this double bind of
It's kind of funny because I'm taking those hormones in order to kind of normalize my body in order to fit into the kind of binary categories of men and women. And but at the same time, when when those substances leave my body, they actually queer the nature. So it's like this kind of weird double thing that's happening, like normalizing at the same time queering. And well, I prefer to think about it as the whole process of queering. But yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about yeah.
Since they're also a product of the how's it called, narco-capitalist industrial complex or something.
Yeah. So you could, yeah. If I were to say something about the monsters, I guess those
Should we say something?
kind of queer bodies and those living, like as I was calling them in that other essay, wondrous beings, something that lives on the periphery and is kind of escaping the binary thinking and the kind of dichotomy of men and women. Those could be called monsters, and it's something to be embraced rather than pathologized or yeah. Maybe that's enough about lichens.
So we can look at the broader lineage of this sort of becoming in your work.
Yeah, about digital becoming. This is I didn't actually do this visualization. Oh, what is this? Oh, because it's okay. It was part of my BA graduation at Camberwell. But I didn't do this. I was actually doing the sound, and it was a live kind of installation, like audiovisual installation in the photographic dark rooms. So we were kind of taking the photographic process and then kind of turning it upside down and kind of through a transformation of a digitally rendered object, trying to kind of understand the process of the chemical reaction between light and like silver particles, I guess. So yeah, thinking back, I've always been interested in this digital metamorphosis, I guess, would be the best way to perceive it.
Is it because digital shows the constructed nature of the becoming the most?
That was a funny video because I couldn't find anything better, sorry. Jak jsi to vypíná?
Ale to nebylo tak pěkně dvakrát doprostřed. Ne? Tak přes videa, tam Alt F4 tam.
Alt F4? Sorry, you were asking?
If you think that you are attracted to the topic of digital becoming because it shows the artificiality of becoming as a concept much more obvious, apparently or obviously than, I don't know, non-digital becoming does.
Yeah, I think so. But to give a very short answer to this, I think digital becoming is, for me, kind of like a helpful tool in order to like understand my own kind of very abstract processes that happen inside of me, so I can't see them. So through the manifestation of these digital objects, maybe it's a way for me to kind of get closer to my own. This is just it was funny because it was I don't know if you know how dark rooms work, but there's always this huge wash tank, and we were projecting onto the wash onto the water, but we were projecting fake, like digital water on top of the water, and then it was reflected back on the ceiling, and I just I found it a funny moment of kind of smudging the lines between what's real and what's not. Yeah, not sure if it's necessary to show anything else. I feel like it's quite long already. No?
No, I mean it's 30 minutes, not even 30 minutes. So I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, and maybe if you could say something, something you haven't talked about with the game or the work that you're showing in the exhibition is kind of the spatialization of it. And so this first, like, oh, and also this idea of scale, right? Like you have, because part of that process of transformation that's happened through all the things you're talking about is actually in each stage there's somehow been an increase in the scale of the things that you're looking at, from the photographs to the sculptures, and now although these are scalable in this exhibition, they're really big, but also in the feel of the game they feel very monumental. They've grown through all the processes.
Also, you don't know how big you are in the game. Like, they might be just relatively big.
Maybe we're all tiny.
But that kind of asks, like, for me, this brings up the question, like, what is this space that we're navigating through this that you created?
Yeah, especially, yeah.
You can also go underwater, I forgot.
Especially when you compare, that's actually a good point, especially when you compare when I did that print on the banner and then I made those soap little sculptures. They were still quite small, and here they're quite, like, I guess human-sized if you were to feel like a human inside the game. Yeah, actually I haven't really thought why it was. It was a conscious decision for sure, but it's actually interesting. I guess because I think about them as like creatures. For some reason, I felt like scaling them up was important in order to kind of like level up with them, or them with me, because I didn't want them to feel inferior in a way, I guess.
But there are smaller ones. I mean,
there are some smaller ones.
This
More
one
like
is so small that it is actually of the bounds of the depth of field effect. Looks like, which is something that I know is there, but we kind of kept it here. And also, just to kind of, I'm not dodging the question. I just figure out it's interesting to show that actually some of them are not like this one. This is not a proper 3D model, right? Like it is glitched in a lot of ways due to the process that Nela put it through in Blender. But actually, those little bugs, you could also say, are funny to me, as they show the incompleteness and some damagedness, diffusionness.
Yeah, I guess working with the glitch.
Yes, that's nice.
Sometimes just leaving it there because we felt like it was actually quite descriptive of what we're trying to achieve with it.
Yes. Also, there's quite a few of things that were initially bugs, but we decided to leave them there. Which one is this? One of them is this. This is actually a bug, which means you are kind of entering the invisible mountain with this blue shader on, which kind of paints everything blue, but it really works like even just aesthetically, so we left it there. And also, if you can run by holding down shift, which you would expect you would just
only sideways.
And it like
you can't run, you can swim very fast.
yeah, right. It's not running. You don't have a body, right? But
yeah, that's the thing. We don't have.
You can move. So and you can't move directly in front of you, which was another kind of bug. But in the end, I decided to keep it in because it also, again, defamiliarizes the traditional control scheme of games, which like this subverting the expected control schemas in games and in gaming embodiment is something that is kind of interesting to me. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry to
But
associate it
like
end
to
up
the
somewhere
scale,
else.
actually, if this were what we were kind of originally calling it, a primordial kind of soup where things are interacting together and there's like toxic substance and something is born out of it and then it leaves this world and etc etc, then I think the scale would be that actually we are inside of this liquid and we are really tiny, kind of like imagine you know, you probably know this series, Byl jednou jeden život. Once there was a life. I don't know how to translate it to English.
To French.
It was a French series where you kind of enter the bloodstream and there are these tiny little cells that have, you know.
And you're kicking the bacteria.
Yeah, yeah, and so I think that's more the sense of scale. That you're inside of something that's very tiny and you can see the kind of behind the scenes of the processes that are happening.
And also, if you've been paying attention, the skybox around us, the sky, it's the print from the sculpture precursor to this work.
Yeah.
Actually, somebody managed to go to the edge of the map, which they weren't supposed to do, but it's fine with me. People do that.
And then the other thing maybe you could say something about was, for me, one of the most interesting parts of playing the game was as a reading experience. And so I'd be interested about like how you, like the process of writing the text and then the process of dissecting the text and distributing it spatially around the game, and kind of more about how you were thinking about. I mean, maybe you weren't thinking about so much about how you would read the game, if you see what I mean, or like how you would read the text.
How did it drive?
But just yeah, your process of firstly your process of writing, and then your process of transforming that text or manipulating that text so it could be distributed inside the game.
It's funny you think it's distributed. It's not. I mean, it always appears on the same. It is another glitch that happens, which I decided to leave in. Is the text? Initially, I was just like trying to put it just like it was the easiest solution because we didn't have so much time. Just to put it like to stick it onto the camera, right? So that's where it is. But it has this counterpart in one of the places, which is actually always the same place, and it creates like a very nice duality, I guess, aesthetically. And it was a result of a glitch or of a bug because I had to put it in an additional camera to kind of make the text not to make the post-processing effects not apply to the text, and then I forgot that it is actually still being rendered in the second camera, so it's rendered twice, and then I decided to leave it in after consulting Nela. So this distributedness, it's funny you get it out of it, but it's very how do you say it? In unconscious, no, unconscious, unintentful, I don't know, not intentful. Unintended, yes. So the rest of enough about me.
The process of writing a text, well, the text existed long before the game did. So as part of my kind of midterm show where you could see that prints, like the banner print and the soap objects, text already existed together with that, but it wasn't really a part of the installation, and I've always been struggling with kind of trying to incorporate text in the work because it's always really important, because I get lost a lot in my kind of thinking processes, and kind of trying to understand, like, okay, so it's digital and then it becomes physical, and then it's something happens and then it goes back to physical, and I wrote this text in order to better kind of understand what I was meaning by all that, and And then, then I actually found out that without the text, it's not very possible to understand what's happening because it is just simply too complicated. And then we had the game without the text, and a lot of people who did read the text were like saying that it's a shame that it's not there. And so this is actually, for me, the first time that I'm actually using text in my work, and I think it's a really good way to do it. Because, like you said, it's dissected into small parts, and people can kind of feel through the text rather than read through the text, if that makes sense. But I was trying to kind of stay on the edge of being poetic, but also being factual or like theoretical at the same time. I don't know. But it was originally written in Czech, but then it was published in Swarm Mag, translated to English, so we used that translation. And then, played around with it a bit. Because the original essay is a bit longer.
And it also incentivizes you to interact with the environment, right? Which is something that people weren't doing that much before.
Yeah, does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I think probably like
you have to go. I think you with your kind of voice have to go first.
Okay, sure, thank you. Like, is there any significance like there surely is that like you have like this like very strange like controls and you have like this glitchy like inactiveness or like you lose some kind of like agenda in the game. I'm trying to like formulate the question and I think I'm each struggling a bit, but yeah, basically like what's the significance of like choosing not to give like use any like game rules or like any like interactivity which should be based on some kind of maybe having a score or like progressing through the game and stuff.
We were initially thinking, we were before the ETC, we were thinking if to, I don't know, like if it wouldn't be better to not just click space and have another piece of you shown to you, but if you could be like collecting the text and then had a place where you could see which text have you collected, which not, and read it. But I don't know, I think it's like making it more gamey would actually kind of create a different kind of headspace or feeling where where you would be much more goal-oriented than you are here. Well,
you would have a task that you have to complete.
Yes, you would have to task. Well, here you don't know how long the text actually is when you start playing. The only instructions we give you are those like just to space menu to touch, which is just like which is just right amount of just right amount of ambiguity, I'd say. I don't know. I don't think it would work. The aesthetic, no, the aesthetic is a bad word. I think the feeling would be off if we would make it more gamey. Because it's more about meditation and just like being in some sort of, I don't know, it's not probably trance, but in some sort of different time space. Than to make it a like traditional gaming game. I mean, what would the score be anyway? Just the numbers of objects touched.
And anyone who knows me knows that I don't really like competitions and forced tasks and stuff like that. Maybe it would be an interesting challenge for me to create a game where you actually have to, count the score or try to win. But it's something that makes me very anxious. So I guess not like I didn't even think about having that part of it.
Also, competition and counting scores is a very productive way of teleology. So it wouldn't be so weird to have it there. Too heteronormative.
Yeah, it's not because we're lazy and we don't know how to code.
Yes, I wouldn't know how to code inventory. I wouldn't know.
It's because we are
Yes.
against those
Yes,
capitalist
obviously I could make it a better
ideals
I chose not.
of competition and score.
Resource extraction.
It's actually an anti-capitalist game.
Yeah, right.
Which it is, but yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't
it
know.
is by ethos, but I don't know if in content.
No.
But obviously, capitalism, modernity, like clear-cut subject agency is getting dissolved, blah blah. So yes, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know. And also, yeah, I mean, I could pretend to be smart and say that we actually thought about counter gaming or whatever, but
No, we did have a discussion about it.
did we?
For sure.
We
Yes.
did. Okay.
And I said that I didn't want it to be too gamey.
Yes, I know, but like there's a heritage or tradition in some areas of game studies or like DIY game scene where there's a conscious decision not to pursue the traditional game ideals of production, competition, blah blah. Like Bonnie and Ruberg, they talk about this. They have this No Fun manifesto, which incidentally the No Fun collective is
But
called.
this is something that in the discussion last weekend came up with Eleanor Dare talking about even the tools you use, and you're using Unity. Eleanor was talking about Unreal Engine and how it's very difficult to get rid of the gun. When you like are using the engine, like it gives you a character, it gives you like a human figure with a gun, and like there's already the defaults are already so like encoded with certain expectations of how you're going to interact with a computer. Right?
Well, in this case, we actually started from a Unity template for the first-person game.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not a first-person shooter actually, so it's just like walking simulator kind of situation. But I'd say it codes, and it shows here too that it already presupposes like the I don't know human perspective, right? Like we have it's not depth of field, it's field of view is like I don't know 80 or something, which is traditional kind of. So that's what I guess the encoded presumptions would be. Like in retrospect, it would be fine to maybe play a little more with the perspective and the visual, because it still like gives you a little bit of a feeling that you are kind of anthropomorphic. I don't know. Maybe it's just a convention I'm expected to expect. But yeah, you're totally right. But I don't think it was this case. We didn't strip down the gun. It actually never was there. But yeah, I mean there is a first-person shooter template for sure too. But it wasn't the case with this.
I was actually thinking about this when you mentioned, if I get it right, that you're not interested in embodiment in games.
I am interested.
You are, okay, but since it feels like there's no body of the viewer, right? Since you're just floating and you get hints in those instructions that you can crouch and run.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it feels like you're this almost not embodied subject who's capable of viewing and reading and somehow, well, at least to me, it feels like there's some tension between this project of queer becoming, since I think of queering as something necessarily embodied. And,
right.
In a way, this feels like, there's some kind of bodiless universal subject which deals mostly with watching things. Is it something you were thinking about? For example, if I could choose my player's body, which would look similar as the objects in
right. Well, I wasn't that consciously thinking about it during making it, but I have an answer with quoting actually two not opposing but like different interpretations of the situation by different people, not me. Which I found interesting. One of them is game researcher Rune Clavier, who wrote about a thing he calls assumed body, where even in games where we don't have the visible embodiment, we still assume that we have a body, which is like, it's I would say case of our game, where you still assume it is you who are moving, or maybe some sort of the English word for it is Steadicam, like just a camera, like machinic whatever that is just there. That's one way of looking at it. But the other way of looking at it, I think would be much more interesting in the case of our game, is actually interpretation of the game scholar and writer Ian Bogost, incidentally an object-oriented ontology philosopher, who reads a game that's called Proteus, which is in kind. Well, I can actually show it because it's probably best to show it, which is a little bit similar to us in some ways. Anna Davidová, dobře, to otevřu e-mail, ne? Uh, the Proteus is a. I think it actually was in not conscious, but maybe like I know about this game. I love this game, so it was an inspiration for sure. Oh, she speaks French. What the fuck? Koukám jako blázen. Yeah, so this is a Proteus game, and it's a game where you just appear on a procedurally generated, because obviously it's procedurally generated, a stylized island, and you're on this island. Let's just wait for it. And you're on this island, and you're just like moving around on the island. You don't have any body that's visible, no hands, no feet, or whatever, and you just like you only are on the island, which somewhat, but not always, reacts to you. Like, and there are like four different seasons that shift on the island and stuff like that. So it's kind of a weirdly interactive, non-interactive. I'm not quite sure if like where to put it. And Ian Bogost actually talks about this game and tries to interpret it in his article for The Atlantic. And one of the ways he tries to interpret it is exactly looking at the position of the subject inside the game. And he concludes that maybe what Proteus is trying to do with showing you that you have no body and you are kind of floating around the island without any very discernible physics or weight to your body, which you would, I don't know, I guess felt more if you would be actually controlling the game. That may be what Proteus is trying to do, and that's his object-oriented ontology interpretation. As in, maybe it's a game about trying to imagine what being an island feels like. It's less about a particular one subject, but more about kind of freely floating through the space and imagining you as maybe the space itself, if it makes sense, than being just an actor in it. And I guess in some way you could, I guess, interpret our games similarly.
Yeah, but also I didn't even think about having a body in the game, because it's about unfinished, never-ending kind of becomings. So
yeah.
To have actualized a physical form in which to kind of in which to inhabit would be kind of against that, I feel like.
And also
because I kind of try to put myself not maybe out of the body but inside of it and try to encounter all the other entities that kind of make it up. Makes sense.
And what is actually funny is that a lot of FPS first-person games don't have feet. So sometimes you only see the gun and it's all. So it's also the embodiment in a lot of these games is very speculative. Like maybe you are just a gun going around. Yeah. Do we have any questions on YouTube? This is like if you like our artist talk, hit the subscribe button and switch on the bell notification so you don't miss anything from ETC Gallery.
Yeah.
That's what they always do.
Patreon is coming.
Yes,
soon.
we have Patreon. There will be a merch drop. No, I'm kidding. We could do merch.
No, but I think like this is exactly what you're saying. Like, this is being like an internal rather than like the view or the perspective is like in sight. So.
To někdo?
Ne, to tam já. Ne, možná se kouká, ale Ivan. What?
Just gravity.
Gravity.
The simulation of gravity.
Right. I mean, kind of. You mean how they are floating down?
Oh no, like as a for the player, you're like you're stuck to a single vertical plane, horizontal plane.
Yes. Like you
But
can.
that's like, I mean, but that's
Yeah, you
the-
can fly. That's true.
That's the.
You know, sequel. In sequel,
Yeah.
you could fly
Mm.
and shoot. Okay. I,
Yeah.
I mean, we could make your vision blurry when you go underwater in the sequel, I guess. Also, you could buy these creatures as NFTs.
That's the next step.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, I believe the gallery is open until 7.
The gallery is open till 7 if you're
on a
online
Sunday.
and you wanna go and come. You can come. Please
so
come.
If you're watching online, still have time to come down. Play some of the other games or play this one yourself. So thanks, Nela and Ondřej.
Thank you for having us.
And perhaps
we
the
look
game
forward-
will be online at some point
Yes,
to
perhaps.
play for free.
Great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.